All right, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, guys, buys, and non-conventionally identifies. It's your boy, Mr. Pip Darty here. We've got a little bit of a different podcast today. We are joined by not one, but two local degenerates from the DotHackNetwork Discord. Gentlemen, shall we introduce ourselves?
Sure. Tim from Pennsylvania.
And I'm also Sam from Pennsylvania.
Used to be in the same area of Pennsylvania. Now we're spread apart by about an hour and a half.
And I'm just across the bridge in Jersey. Would you look at that?
Nice.
Bunch of East Coast degenerates. I'll drink to those. So, the three of us have gathered here today to share a little bit of a story about a card game that most of you probably haven't fucking heard of. And that's Dot Hack Enemy. We can get into the Dot Hack RPG at a later time. I'll probably put a little schmooze in at the beginning of this episode of my podcast because we're not broadcasting this live, so I have the joys of post-processing. So, how long were both of you actually actively playing Enemy, and what got you into it in the first place?
Go ahead, Tim.
Yeah, I think for both of us, I think Hack Infection was the first, obviously the first in the series here in North America. I'm not sure about anywhere else, but on the PS2, I played that, got into it, showed it to Sam here. He also got pretty into it, and then when I heard a card game was coming out, I really got excited because I always liked card games, which I know is one of the later questions, but I always did like card games, and kind of bringing those two things together got me pretty excited. And we ran out and bought some cards. I don't know if it was the first day it came out, but it wasn't far. And then I played, that was what, 04, I guess? Or did it come out in October 03?
It was October. It was the end of the year of 03.
Okay, so October 03, and then we played definitely through the end of 05. So we'll talk about in a bit. We went out to the World Championships twice, but I'm not sure. Did we play into 06? Much into 06, Sam? I know you played a couple more months past when I did.
I did. Yeah, I don't recall how much further our local Decipher reps actually still kept holding tournaments for us. I remember, yeah, you're right. I did play a little longer than you did, but entirely, I don't know if it went all the way to 06, because I remember, I don't think they actually even held it at Gen Con the following year. I think it was just the 2 years, and that was like it.
Yeah, it was 4 and 5 were definitely Gen Con, and then we played, I imagine we played some after that, but that was probably the sort of when it started tailing off. They didn't bring out any series after Breakout, which would have been
04. All that was all 04 except for the first series. Yep.
Okay, so Contagion was 4, and then Distortion through Breakout were all 5.
Yep.
Cool.
No, 04. It was 3 and then 4.
Okay, but then the second Worlds was 05.
Yes, correct.
Yeah, got it.
Now, how did the both of you actually? Just to preface this, so you guys are actually like IRL chums. You didn't just meet through Enemy. Okay, cool.
Yes.
Correct. Yep.
So,
Correct.
how did you guys even find out about the game? Because as we just established, you guys are literally right over the bridge, and I never fucking heard of the game a day in my life. Up until maybe about 5 years ago.
Like I said, most of my stuff and my information all came from Tim. He first exposed me to the game, and I loved the game. And then we started watching the anime series that rolled out simultaneously the time that the games were released. And then shortly after that, I guess, Tim, you were the one that found the information out about the TCG that came out then, right?
Yeah, some of my girlfriend's friend at the time and brother were heavy into Magic, and I think they knew that we liked the card game, and they would go to the comic store and things, and they might have heard some rumblings of a game series, a TCG coming out related to the games that I liked. And then I know one of the later questions, where were the tournaments? The comic book scene was mainly where all the tournaments were. Well, a lot of them, not all of them, but that's where we got our beginning of cards and things like that. But I think it was through a friend that said it was coming out, and then once that first set came out, we were hooked.
Yeah, it seems like, especially for me in general, because most of my friends were big on, I had two groups of friends, FPS guys and RPG guys. And the RPG, I was literally the infectious disease that just went through all of my RPG friends and was like, hey, you totally need to play in this game called Dot Hack Infection. And they were like, what the fuck is that? And I'm like, well, you see. And then it's...
Yeah, I was the same way. I could never like dig into like first person shooters, but people loved them, and yeah, I was the RPG guy too. I played them all. So when Tim first showed it to me, I was just like, this is amazing. Because I always, as a kid, envisioned myself getting trapped inside a video game, escaping the realities of the world. I'm like, this is awesome. So I was all about like Tsukasa's character and everything.
Good old isekais. So for the most part, is that where you guys kind of cut your teeth on the card game? Was that at a local comic shop?
Well, I mean, we did a lot of playing at home. We had a group of friends. I guess it was myself, Sam, and there was our other friend Wade was pretty heavy into it, and then there's a couple more that they would play. We'd let them borrow cards. They had a couple decks of their own, but we'd also let them borrow cards, and we had a lot of matches just around the house. And then the tournaments there for a while, it seemed like they were like every other weekend about, right, Sam?
Yeah, I was trying to think because I figured he was going to ask anyway. It was like, I think almost, was it bi-weekly?
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking, like every other week, yeah.
Yeah, I think it was bi-weekly.
Yeah, and then
our Decipher ref tried to host him, I think, bi-weekly because you had to have a certain amount too. I think it was like 6. You had to at least have 6 people attend to have it be sanctioned so that you could gain experience while you were there, because they kind of tried to operate it like the video game where you gained experience by playing in tournaments and winning, and then that would get turned in through Decipher and they would send you prizes in the mail.
Oh, gotcha. Okay, very similar program with Magic, with Friday Night Magic, and the now defunct they had like a Friday Night Magic reward system where the more sanctioned events you played, they would start sending you like promo cards and stuff like that in the mail.
Right. Yeah, it was along the same lines. Like this was basically the first trading card game I ever played. I was able to dodge the Pokemon bullet and only dabbled in Magic as a very young boy. So, so this was the first one I actually dove like full head on into.
So would you say that? I mean, did you basically like jump full head first into DotHack and just ditched Magic entirely, or was there like a break in between there?
No. I didn't even play Magic that much. My friend had the game. I played it when I went to his house, and that was about the extent of it. I don't even have my own collection, so.
Yeah, sort of same here. I was struck by the Pokemon bullet when I was in high school. So I did play Pokemon for a while.
My condolences.
No need to apologize. I had to kill a Rain Dance deck, yeah, then I wasn't into Magic. The same friend that introduced me to Hack, saying that the card game was coming out. He had asked me to play Magic a couple times, and I played here and there, but definitely, again, didn't have my own collection either. So this is the first card game that I owned outside of Pokemon, which was pretty limited. That was only for a little bit, probably the first 2 sets maybe. But
all right. Now as far as card games are concerned, I mean, DotHack is definitely one of the shorter lived in the card game scene, and we'll kind of get into discussing a few reasons why you gentlemen might suspect that be. But after Enemy, did you have any desire or drive to jump into some of these other card games we've been discussing, or was it just kind of, okay, this is kind of petering out and I'm kind of over it at this point?
We did a lot of like the online trading card games, like Cold Sep. Phantasy Star Online 3 offered a card game alternative, and the games like that, we play that. I didn't personally get, like, our Decipher rep tried to push a lot of the Decipher product that came through, like Mega Man and Beyblade, and yeah, we weren't really buying on that. So
Beyblade. That's making me back. The amount of times I got in trouble for breaking Beyblades on my front porch with my friends is astounding. And there worked a lot of paper routes back in the day.
Yeah, Tim, you didn't play too many other than the 2 I mentioned on the consoles, right?
No, yeah, I was definitely heavy into Cold Step, which is for another day, but that's an amazing series as well. But
we might have to sit down and talk about that too, because I've never heard of that.
Oh, if you
it's actually pretty engaging, yeah.
Yeah, it's Monopoly meets Magic. That's the analogy they give, and it rings true. It's very good. It's a board game with trading card game elements. You build a deck. There's elements to it's amazing. Dice rolls, awesome. So, but yeah, no other physical card games. Mainly because it's hard to find people that want to play with you, and the online, I did try a couple. Like I tried a couple little ones on like the cell phone many years later. But yeah,
I was gonna say,
physical card games.
Like, I mean, today there's a litany of digital card games. I mean, you've got Tep-In from Capcom, you've got 2 different ways to play Magic online, you've got the Pokemon TCG online. I mean, basically, if you don't want to actually be a socially introverted extrovert and go to a nerd shop and play cards, you could definitely sit at home and play plenty of card games now. But I don't really think there was that many options back, back then, like back around the time of Enemy.
Yeah. Like I said, Sam mentioned Phantasy Star Online 3, which is another really fun game, but that had an online element. Even on the GameCube, it had online, so that was fun to play. And then Concept Saga was on the 360, that was online. And then there was one for the 3DS, but yeah, nothing else physical wise.
And to just give the viewers at home a concept of time, we're talking 2003 to, I think it was 2006 the Enemy was running.
Late
yeah.
03 through, depending on some local scenes probably held on longer, but yeah, I would say through beginning of 06 was probably about wrapping up where we were.
And I mean, speaking of local scene, describe to me a bit of like kind of like what the scene was like, because I know at least when it comes to Magic, people tend to get very cliquey. Like you go to an event and there's like group A, B, and C all hanging out in their respective tables, and then the tournament starts and people are like just kind of, all right, let's get to business.
So I think, go ahead, Zane, you can start.
Oh, well, I was just saying, like, in regards to that, like, I just think maybe with Enemy, it was kind of a little bit more of a, because we never had such a turnout like Magic does. I'm sure they go, quite a few when it comes to tournaments, so they probably turn out quite a bunch. Like, I would think probably even at our best get-together would maybe just a little bit over a dozen. I don't think it was like a ton. Like there was like some different special level up tournaments they did, or some kind of like sealed deck draft promo things or whatever they were doing, but like that you might have a little bit more, but mostly it was kind of just like a smaller environment with like literally somewhere between 6 to 12 people. So you kind of, and it was usually the same people in the same area, so you sort of got to know each other. So it was more of a family thing. So we weren't really segregated or separated. You'd show up, and people kind of knew who you were and knew, maybe what you were gonna play, or you could joke with them and have fun. So yeah, we didn't really have like cliques or groups. I can't say.
Yeah, there was. Now the area we were in, York, Pennsylvania, there was like a couple tournaments, like you said, every other weekend. But then there were some in Lancaster, which, if you're familiar with the area, maybe.
I used to work in Lancaster at the Renaissance Fair.
Okay, the Renaissance Fair, nice. So about 45 minutes away. So we would travel. I mean, there would be some that we'd branch out a little bit, and then for the larger tournaments, like Sam said, we get folks from even Philadelphia and Pittsburgh for like the state tourneys and things like that. So those turnouts might have crept up on 20, because there was folks from, we would see them from the leaderboard, which is funny because, as Sam mentioned, there was an online leaderboard, so you could see the PA state rankings, and then you'd see folks come in from Philadelphia, or they come in from Virginia. Yeah, yep. There's fellows from Virginia. So I mean, there were some in those kind of events when it was larger, and we kind of get a little bit. You'd have the locals versus the the incoming people that traveled a bit to get there.
We had to rep our hood.
Yeah,
right.
That's pretty much how we are with Magic. Anytime there's a big event in Philadelphia, we usually just dogpile into somebody's car with our backpacks and just head up there. Like, all right, we gotta show these Philly boys what's up. I gotta stop saying that, because I used to be. I went to college in Philly, so I gotta rep both states when I can. Yeah, I could imagine, like, with a tighter knit community. I mean, in general, I mean, as the three of us have seen in the Discord, we've got a couple of bad eggs, like any group or community. But in general, I feel like if you like .hack, it's such an obscure thing that you're just genuinely happy to see somebody else interested in it.
Yep, I think that's what it is. That's exactly.
I'm always looking forward to talking shop with somebody that's actually remotely interested in the topic.
Yeah. Now, I mean, there were a few instances where things got heated, and when we talk about the World Tournament, there was definitely stats people from all over. So there was a couple things where people were fired up. There were tears. There was.
I'm sure there was salt to be had, like in any game.
There's some funny stories you can take out of that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately with card games, it's both luck and skill based. So.
Yeah. And there were some times when there would be, you'd have 45 minutes to do a best 2 of 3. If the match was over in 10 minutes, that's an awkward 35 minutes to just hang out at the table.
It's like, so you beat my ass 6 ways from Sunday. How about them Lakers?
Yeah. Sorry you brought Axeman, dude. Can't help you.
So in general, explain to me this whole like ranking system. So there were sanctioned events, and you would just earn points towards not only leveling up, but they would also use those sanctioned events to calculate some form of ranking for you.
Yeah, so you want to go ahead, Tim, or you want me? I'll take it.
Yeah, you can. You're better with the details. I can chime in.
Okay, well, I don't know the exact numbers because it was like obviously years ago. So you got a certain amount of like EXP when you showed up for the event. So you get let's just say 200, and then you got maybe 50 for every win you scored while you're at these tournaments. And they leveled you up exactly like you did when you played the .hack video game, where it's every level was 1,000 experience. So as you accrued this EXP by going to the tournaments, you would in turn level up. And every time you leveled up, because your information was submitted into Decipher, they would then send you in a mail a tournament level up card and a tournament promo card that you got as a reward.
Oh, that's where the level up cards came from. Okay.
That's where they originally came for, before you could find them everywhere. Yeah, but yeah, originally they came only in the mail when you actually leveled up in the tournaments or in your level.
Okay. So people that were just crushing tournaments from the get-go, because we'll be doing a separate segment on actual gameplay and stuff. So stay tuned for that, those of you that are watching this on YouTube. But so, I mean, there were promo cards that required you to use these level up cards to actually play them. So people that were already crushing it in tournaments were just crushing it more.
Well, yeah, I mean, the tournament promo cards, thankfully, even though there was a couple of them that ended up being abused and broken, for the most part, yeah, Coma ended up kind of being broken, and then
Corrupted Field.
Is that the one that made you switch the seats in the middle of the game?
Yep, Corrupted Field, yeah.
That became a nuisance at tournaments and stuff like that, so they kind of put a stop to it. Yeah, because if you're at a huge table and you got to jump over the table or climb under it to switch seats to play the other guy's deck.
That was one of the funniest things when I was looking through some of the tournament promos, because they had some of the more iconic scenes in both the anime and video games for me. So I was just for those of you that play Magic, imagine a time walk. But instead of taking an extra turn, you're just telling your opponent, hey, I'm going to flip the top card of my deck, and whatever the converter mana cost of that card is, you skip that many turns. And that's what Coma did in Enemy. Yeah. And let me tell you, I don't even have to know how to play the game to realize that is just a bad design, but a cool one.
Yeah. I mean, it is a neat card, and if you can do it moderately, it's kind of fun. But yeah, it became abusive for people. People just found a way to cycle it and kept playing it, and the other guy would never get a turn, and it would be game over before you knew it.
Yeah, and Magic learned real quick that anything that requires physical dexterity or actually physically doing something outside of the game space for sanctioned play is in general just in poor taste. They actually printed a joke Magic card that required you to bring a Nerf gun, as you shot your opponent's deck with the Nerf gun. How many cards you knocked over just went in the graveyard. I'm like, that's awesome, but holy shit, if that was ever allowed in sanctioned tournament play, the chaos that would ensue. That would be
a hot mess. You'd have cards flying everywhere. But yeah, with those tournament level up promos, they were kind of niche. So unless you were gonna throw it in there for fun or maybe make an entire deck based around it, you weren't going to use them very often. The only one I can honestly say that really got any action or any play is Newbie, and she came out in the second set of the tournament. She's the only one that's any kind of usefulness. The rest of them are kind of niche or just chuck in there for fun. Hey, look, I played Investigator. Oh, that's fun. So
it's kind of more just a flex of hey, I do well in tournaments.
Yeah, pretty much. Well, that when you sat down, you had all the level up cards sitting there, so everybody could see it. If you were level 20, you'd have 20 of these pictures of kites and ball mugs and black roses all lined up in a row right there in front of you.
Actually, that's not gonna lie. So back during the height of the Pokemon TCG, when you went to like the bigger like regional events and stuff, you'd get like gym badges. And I always had a hoodie that I had all my gym badges on, so kind of for the same purpose of just like flexing, like, hey, bam, fuck with me, fam. So in general, outside of the tournament cards and stuff, which saw some play, so were the cards in general pretty accessible, or did you find that sometimes when like you went to your local card shop, they were just out of stock or having a hard time getting them in, or?
In the beginning, we got them from the comic book store, and they were usually okay. Like I never felt like we were, in short supply. And I think once they realized that there was a niche of people that were going to buy them, they would also bring more in. And then also most times with a tournament, you would get a couple packs, which was always nice. So entry to the tournament, you usually get a couple packs just for showing up, because they would give them out as kind of, nice,
it's just like part of your entry fee, just like, hey, here's a couple of packs, even for like constructed events where you brought your own deck.
Or they'd have them as prizes. Yeah, and they have as prizes, so you could select to, you get second place. Oh, you get 4 packs, whatever.
Damn, I wish Magic fucking did that. Jesus Christ.
Yeah, and
maybe I wouldn't be so broke.
And then I think by the third set we started purchasing online, so we just buy boxes from Hills Gaming or something like that, and then we just
oh dude,
not get too many from them.
I was so sketched out by Hills for the longest time.
So was I.
Before I started talking to you guys in the Discord, I kept looking at Hills like this is the only place left, because fucking Toy Wiz is sold out totally on .hack, because I was eyeballing it forever, and I was like, all my friends play Magic, nobody's gonna get into this game doesn't seem to be in print anymore. And then all of a sudden the prices on Toy Wiz just started going up and up and up, and then bam, sold out. And I was like, oh shit, I totally missed the bandwagon there. I'd have loved to just have the cards. And then I found Hills, and I was like, nope, this site looks like it was built in like 1985. If you are the web host or developer for the Hills wholesale gaming website, I don't fault you for that. It works, it does its job, great. But man, does it look sketchy back in 2010. It looked like a place I did not want to put my credit card or PayPal into.
Yeah, it does look a little questionable, but I've heard so many decent things, and I was like, you know what, I got to give it a shot, and I did. It's good. I mean, they have to lower their shipping, but other than that,
yeah. Well, I mean, after the game died, you could buy a box of each for $20 all in. $20 plus say 12 shipping. So for $30, you get a case, a box of each. And I actually had a bunch in my basement. Me and Sam and Wade used to do booster drafts just at the house with the three of us. You just deal them up.
Nice.
They were so cheap there for a while. It was amazing.
So as far as like when the game was new, rough guesstimate, what would you recall was like the MSRP of like booster boxes and packs and stuff like that?
I think the packs were $4, right? They put three and a quarter, $3.30, something like that.
Okay.
Starter decks were $12, and I think the booster packs were like $3.29 or $3.49, something like that. But then if you bought a box, it was a lot cheaper. So you weren't paying $90 for a box. I think the boxes might have been, at least a third off. Call it maybe $50 or so, Sam. I can't think we paid more than.
No, we wouldn't have paid that much.
No,
Yeah.
I mean, so say it. Yeah, so
we were both working at a restaurant then, so yeah, we didn't have money flowing out of our backside. So
did you guys work together at the same restaurant, or?
That's where we met. Yeah, working together in a restaurant.
Cool,
yeah.
Cool.
We skipped that part of the backstory. We were just hoping it was going to be implied.
Well, I didn't know if y'all went to school together or something, or.
No, not that far.
Gotcha. Okay, so yeah, about at the time, MSRP for any card game was like, I dipped into Duel Masters for a little bit when that came out, and so I bounced around in every card game. Those of you that know me and know the channel, that you guys already know this, because I talk about any card game that comes into the fucking chat when I'm live on Twitch. So people get shocked, like, damn, did this kid's parents ever have any money? Because he went from Pokemon to Duel Masters to Digimon to Magic to back to Pokemon to this .hack shit now. I don't. Anyways. So now the one thing I've noticed, because I have cracked many booster boxes of the enemy card game. Most of them are up there. But it's what I've noticed is like the extra rares were, relatively speaking, I mean, consistent, because you pretty much, I've noticed you were guaranteed like kind of X amount of them per booster box. Now, when it comes to like for constructed play where you bring in your own deck, was there ever a time where like were singles for like even really available for sale at like hobby shops and stuff, or not so much?
You
Not-
could.
Yeah, tough locally. I know online you could, but I'm not sure. Like, I
Yeah,
can't picture.
yeah,
I
that's what I was
can't
gonna
picture.
say.
Yeah, not like when Pokemon was out, you'd have the binder, you just roll in, and they'd have the binder like, oh, everything on this page is 50 cents, commons, uncommons. But yeah, not so much for hack. I don't think the local, at least the local shops had singles, but you could buy them online if you were. And that's what I think Sam started to do towards Epidemic. I think you just bought.
Epidemic was the one I scooped 3 complete sets of for. Well, I guess each set was a little over $100, but you know, considering how rare it is now, obviously, and you can't find Epidemic, like that looks like the most brilliant purchase in the universe, because I literally bought 3 complete sets of the entire set from it's a site that's no longer active. I think it was like cardvault.com or something like that.
Oh my god, I used to scoop up other TCGs from that site. Oh, fucking memories.
Yeah, they were amazing, and they had a stand when we went to Gen Con one year when I had no money. I came back the next year, they were gone. So when I actually had money, so I couldn't get anything then. But they had a bunch of singles, and I like bought the complete set, 3 of them from Epidemic on there. So.
Yeah, for those of you that are going to be watching this, I'm cringing as he says this right now because we'll get into detail about Epidemic in a moment. But let's just say it is one of the biggest pain in the fucking arses to actually find cards from this set, because it apparently was an incredibly low print run, right in the middle of .hack Enemy's lifespan.
Yeah.
And I've spent buku amounts of more money just to get a handful of cards from that set. But we're getting there. My game, I'm trying to get at least one full set of the entire enemy game, and then after that I'm just gonna sit on it and just relish in the fact that I had the expendable income to do it at the time.
Okay, I won't bring up my 4 copies of each card then that I
Oh
own.
no, you can totally flex that all day, every day, because the only people that are gonna care or give a shit about it or be even mildly impressed are you, me, and like the 20 other people that actually casually chat in the .hackNetwork Discord in the enemy channel. So.
Yeah. Sam had the collector muscle more than me. I had at some point I had one of each. I think I may have even sold some that I only had one of, but. Yeah, let me know what you're missing after this. I'll see what I have for you for Epidemic-wise.
All right, cool beans. Getting the hook right. Now, as far as like the tournament scene is concerned, because I know for a lot of like kind of more niche or unpopular, I'll say, card games, it was like the side event. Like you had like the big tournament that like say like a Magic event where people are expected 30 plus people to show up. And then you had like a handful of tables over here for the enemy kiddos to hang out. Was it like that at some of these like bigger tournaments, or was it like strictly like, no, y'all are here for enemy, period? There's no other events going on tonight.
The ones that were set up were mainly for enemy. So the ones that we went to, like, and even they would even rent like little spaces in like a strip mall, you know, that just had an open available space, and we would just go hang out in there. So when we went, and a lot of times it was even after hours. So like, you know, the after hours when the shop was closed, or the one place we went to in Lancaster had like an upstairs, right, Sam? We'd like play upstairs. It was just
the comic book store had an upstairs that we.
Yeah, so there were like just a room we'd hang out up there. So for the smaller local events, and even the ones we traveled to a little bit, it was mostly you were there for enemy, and they were all available on the site, which was nice. You could go on the Hack Enemy site, search for your state, show all the tournaments upcoming. Had details about what kind of tournament it was, the entry fee, and all that kind of thing were listed on the site, which is nice. You can kind of mark your calendar, if you will. Then for the larger ones, even the state tournament, it was Hack that day. There was nothing else.
Okay.
And I think that was 8 rounds. So I think that might have been at least 20 people, because there was 8 rounds. Then they had like a final confrontation. So it was like 9 rounds all in. At 45 minutes each, so you figure that's probably at least 6-7 hours.
Yeah. That's an all-day affair. I mean, Magic events are 50 rounds, 50 minutes, and you go 50 rounds. Jesus Christ, I would die. I'd show up, I'd queue up for 8 rounds, and I'd be like, all right, I'm done. That's my record for the day. I wouldn't even care about placing at that point. Well, I mean, actually, the bigger Magic events are like a whole weekend affair. So you'd play one format on Friday, another format on Saturday, and then a final format on Sunday. So even then, you're still only going up to I think like if you make it to top 8 in grand finals and stuff, you're playing maybe 30 rounds. So that's whew. Yeah.
Now,
about the same. A nice little all day affair with the chums.
Yeah. Now at the Gen Con, obviously the Worlds, that was a huge event, and there was a section that was, this time hacks in this area at this time you show up, and they had the qualifying. That was a 3-day tournament, right, Sam? Because it was
that was the whole weekend. I don't know that Hack ran all three. It may have definitely been 2.
Yeah,
it may have been only 2 days.
Yeah, I think they had 2 days of qualifying, and then day 3 was, I think, the top 15 or 30 or something, and then they had
that sounds right.
They had other different tournaments throughout, but as far as what they were considering the world tournament, not the peripheral events for Hack, it was, I think, 2 days of qualifying, and then the third day they had the final. Now the second.
Now for the world event in particular, not to cut you off, but was there like qualifiers leading up to that? Like you had to be a certain ranking to participate, or was it just all's invited, but we're gonna do like hard cutoffs at certain rounds?
They had premier qualifiers, right? Is that what he's kind of like?
Yeah. So we had a territorial event. So the premier qualifiers. Then they had a territorial event. So for the Pennsylvania state tournament, it was actually held in our backyard in York, which was nice. And that's where we
had a good Decipher ref. He pushed for tons of tournaments in our area because he was from Strasbourg. I think he was Strasbourg. So he right there. So he pushed for tons of stuff in areas. So.
Yeah. So so the state tournament, I was lucky enough to win that one. So I got a free buy into day 2 at Worlds in 2004. But then they had other qualifiers, I think. So all the states had a qualifier, I believe, territorial opens. And then if you won that, you got to buy into day 2. But then it was everyone comes to Worlds, show up at Indy, and see if you can make it to what they called day 2, even though it was 2 days of qualifiers before that. So you didn't have to have a certain rank to be in the tournament in Indianapolis at the Gen Con, but you could get a way in before that if you had placed well in the other tournaments.
Gotcha. Okay. Now, as far as the tournament scene is concerned, would you say that you were mostly playing like people like your same age, or was there like a nice spread of it where you had some adults, some kids, some teenagers?
Our tournament rep that Sam keeps talking about, him and his wife were probably, how many years older than us, Sam? 15 years older than us, maybe?
At the time, I would say...
We were early 20s. He was probably mid-30s, maybe. Maybe young 30s.
Early 30s, yeah.
Yeah. And then there were some, in our particular area, it was mostly, we'd usually bring 3 or depending 4 sometimes with Sam and I, and then the tournament rep and his wife would play. And then there were some younger kids, but for the most part, it was pretty well between that, young 20s. Some of the folks from Virginia and things that would come were a little bit older, but there wasn't, say between 20 and 40, probably about where it was.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, that's the one thing that I've always found as like one of the signs of like a healthy card game is where you can get together with pretty much a wide age range. You have some people that are probably on their way out of the game and a handful of people that are on their way into it to just kind of keep that perpetual motion machine going. Now would you find that like you bumped into like the same crew pretty much at from like your local scene at like the bigger events, or was it just kind of a big a big, oh, looks like we lost it. Hello? And Discord says Sis dropped out. Hello?
I'm here. I'm sorry. That was my fault. For some reason, my speaker ended up giving out, and I was trying to tweak it.
Oh no, you're good. You're good. I just didn't want to. So the question that I just asked, as far as like the tournament scene was concerned, did you basically just kind of bump into a large handful of the same people you'd find at like your local events, or was it like you were mostly just meeting like all new people aside from who you came with?
Well, when we were getting together for the local stuff, like bi-weekly and stuff like that, that tended to be the same group of people. We didn't see too many different faces. Actually, when we went to Gen Con in the Worlds, I don't actually even think we saw anybody from our. Do you remember seeing anybody, Tim, from our area that when we were there, except for us?
No, I don't think so. And I'm wondering even if like the outskirts, like the Pittsburgh, Philadelphia folks came. I imagine they may have, because they were pretty highly ranked, but you never know if they came or not. But because those were the ones that we'd always see. We know when they had a tournament because they kind of creep up in the rankings, and we would go back and forth. And but yeah, I don't remember running into anybody. Definitely that we played, and I don't even know if we had a conversation. I assume we told the tournament director we were going, but I don't know if he ever came or not. I don't believe he did.
think I ever saw him. Yeah.
Yeah, you'd think he would have. He was heavy into it, but
Yeah, so we keep bringing up like the Decipher rep, which for those of you who don't know, Decipher for enemy, from my understanding of what I've been told through through these gentlemen here, is Decipher is basically the DCI group for enemy. Like they handle the tournament organizations and the ranking management as well, if I recall correctly. Explain to me like this whole Decipher program and these Decipher reps, like what their role is in the enemy card game.
Well, they I guess, I don't know if they, I assume they kind of unofficially work for Decipher. I don't think they were like on a payroll by any means. But I think they were kind of sort of like just kind of helpers to help get the merchandise out there, to expose it, to push new product when it came out, like different games, to the community that they're within. And the gentleman that we had, he was pretty good with it. He set up the tournaments, and like I said, also with like he was responsible for turning in the like the experience cards, at the end of the tournament. So he, but they would send him merchandise. So like when we went to these tournaments or these get-togethers, they would have, like Tim said, like packs of cards, DotHack enemy binders, t-shirts. Tim's got a huge collection of t-shirts that he won at these things.
Nice. I'm a sucker for t-shirt. Anytime I go to an event, if there's like a commemorative t-shirt for it, I have to buy it. I don't care if it's like $50, I'll buy it.
Yeah, Tim's got like what, half a dozen or something.
Yeah, I think 6 or 8. Yeah, so it was the actual the card on the back. It was awesome. It's like the full size, the whole card. So there's a Skeeth.
Oh, okay, yeah, I've seen a couple of them in the Discord. For those of you watching the YouTube video, I'll put them somewhere. Probably put them over my face.
Yeah. So there's there was like a Skeeth. There was a Mimiru 2.0. There's a Helba, Sora. Yeah, there was who else? Poochie? No, Kaoshin. Kaoshin was a good one.
Had
so,
one,
yeah, there's a bunch of them.
Now, would these Decipher reps also act as judges in these tournaments as well, or was there like a separate officiator for events for like rules of
they were never big enough that they had to have one. He just basically like made sure people were matched up with people who kind of were sort of evenly strength. He tried to match up people who won versus people who won and people who lost, so everybody had a chance to sort of be moderately competitive, because we only played like what, 4 to 6 games or whatever it ended up being in a given night when we showed up for these things.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah. So the local events were much shorter, much smaller amount of rounds and stuff.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So if you had 8 people, you weren't going to play all 7 of the other folks. So he just set up a bracket. Just set up a bracket. So you'd play, you'd play say 4 matches or 3 or 4 matches, and then maybe the top 2 records play against each other to see who's 1 and 2, and the rest was just by points based on how many wins and losses and things.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yep. But he would play as well. So he would come and he would also participate. Now, if there was an odd number, sometimes he would sit out. But for the most part, he was there. He would play, and I mean, and they had monthly rules back then, which was fun too. I'm not sure if you know about that. They'd have monthly rules that would adjust the cards based on whatever the month was. So it might be Wave Masters or Destiny +1, or Lightning or Strength +1.
That's kind of neat. It kind of mix up the meta a little bit without just like outright banning a card for a month and just to see what happens. That's neat. I like that.
Yeah. And it kind of forced you to think about decks you may not have even considered. Like, Lightning's pretty weak up front, but if you say, like, the second Lightning monster to an attack is Strength +2 or something, it's like, oh, okay, you can kind of work that in. Or like Wave Master, Destiny +1, they had all different ones.
See, I'm that guy at the Magic tournament that brings like the pile-o jank that people don't expect to work, but I've play tested and piloted the deck enough that against the meta, that I'm like, okay, I'm confident I can at least squeak out a couple wins and leave my opponent at the table like, what the fuck just happened?
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's the best. When you're like, why is that in there? Oh, now I see. Yep.
Oh, like that time you put that Kubia in there.
yeah. Actually, that's a funny story. If you have a minute, we had during the state tournament. It was the 8-round state tournament, and in the final, they have a final confrontation. So even if, like, I think I was either 8-0 or 7-1, but you have to play a final confrontation either way. The deck I played against was a Kubia deck, So I was like, oh, back then, that's the first stage, back before they had the stage Kubias. So all you had to do was spot 8 Gamora. So I put a Kubia in my long arm rainbow deck because it was a 5 Destiny. If nothing else, it's good for Destiny. So when at Worlds in the one tournament, I was playing against the Kubia deck. I had 4 points, and he had all 8 Gamora down, and I played Kubia against him in a non-Kubia deck. I just dropped it on him, and then I ended up winning 7 to something. But he was like, "What the hell? Like, why the hell is it in there?" I was like, "Specifically because I knew I'd run into you." But
does it need to be in here? Because you're here. Yes. Did it work?
Yeah.
Yes. So therefore, I made the right decision. Have a nice day. See, people that know me when I go to my local shop, they know I'm actually like participating in a constructed event. They already know I'm bringing some kind of graveyard based shenanigans, so they always bring their graveyard hate, and I'm like, you motherfuckers, you just don't want me to have fun. RDW, if you're watching this, fuck you. So as far as aside from like those monthly rules, were there any kind of like, how often were there actual like bans in the tournament scenes, and how exactly were they communicated to the player base?
They they didn't ban too many things when we were at tournaments. In fact, unfortunately, that kind of first tournament sort of got like, it became like a big mess because of the fact that they knew about a broken card and then let people still play the banned decks despite knowing it. Like, they knew it, and like they just didn't do it officially until after the first Worlds tournament. And I was like, why? Because like, what was it, Tim? It was like 6 of the 8 top decks that make the final were all this Blue Crush deck.
Yeah, and they were mostly from Chicago. So there was a lot of folks from Chicago that, and I'd never run into it in Pennsylvania. I'd never seen it. And back then,
we had never seen it. Yeah.
The internet was around, obviously, but it wasn't a big enough card game where you'd see like, oh, did you hear about this thing? It's running through everybody. So then you get there and you just get steamrolled by this Blue Crush deck. And they also, that's the reason they changed the rule from discarding your initial hand to shuffling it back in if you choose to not keep your first hand. Because the kind of the way it works is you throw out your first 5 cards, and all of a sudden you've got 5 cards in the discard, and you can drop a 7 strength monster on turn 2, along with 4 hidden cards, and you just start rolling from there. So they did ban after that. I think that was the first major ban.
Holy shit! If that was the Mulligan rules in Magic, I would never complain a day in my life about a game of Magic. Oh man, because like I said, I play mostly graveyard based decks, so just being able to just go, yeah, this belongs in the graveyard, and then now it's in your face.
Yeah, and then so they did ban Corrupted Field, I think, even before the first Worlds, mostly because it was annoying, but also you could really wreck somebody's day with the way that you can sacrifice. For Mood Guardian, for example, you sacrifice 3 cards to play it. So if I was in my opponent's seat, I could just sack 2 points in a PC with all their weapons, and all in one.
Essentially like 7 cards. Yeah.
Yeah, you can wreck somebody's day if you can play their hand for 2 turns. So.
Oh yeah, with a lot of the cards that I've seen that just like inherently just let you sacrifice stuff in play, I can see how Corrupted Field just taking over your opponent's turn. You just really punish them for having any kind of options available.
Yep. Yeah. So then other bans, that was the big one. I think that was the first one. Like Corrupted Field was annoying. They got rid of that. Hidden Forbidden Holy Ground they got rid of because that was found to be that was a promo card. It wasn't even a tourney card. It was a promo card field.
It locks the game up. Like you get stuck and you never do anything. Like people can loop it and keep it in play with like BT or something, and then like you never do anything. Like you can never play any monsters or do anything.
Yeah, because you can't remove the field unless there's at least 2 hidden cards in play or something. So anyway, they didn't do too many bans. Then they banned Marlowe 2.0 at some point.
Marlowe 2.0. They just needed to reissue or retweak him because it's just his reward is just ridiculous.
Yeah. So, but yeah, not too many bans throughout. But the Blue Crush definitely ruined the first tournament. Banned some things after that. Probably more than they had to, but got to overcompensate, I guess.
Gotcha. So were these just kind of like communicated via like these Decipher reps, or were these posted online in advance, or?
I think they were on the site. So the same place where you would go to find out what local tournaments were going on, they had like a banner at the top, or they had a hey, heads up alert, here's a ban thing. The same place they would have be ready for Distortion to drop in 2 weeks or whatever. They would just have like a an announcement on the website, and then you could tell. I don't know if it was in the actual invite, if you went to read like when the tournament was, hey, heads up, this ban is in effect or not, but it would certainly let you know when to get there. if they're in here, take them out. But we never ran into any trouble. It was no lack of information, to put it that way.
Gotcha. Oh, well, that's good. Because like I'm thinking like the dawn of the internet, you know, as a whole, especially with like card game and tournament. Because like I scrubbed the Wayback Machine for on every single website y'all have ever posted in the enemy, just trying to find tournament info when I started this little project of mine. And man, is it scarce.
Oh yeah.
Why I kept annoying the shit out of both of you. Like, no, I need to talk to you. Like,
yeah. I wish we could still find where the rankings ended up. The Sam was number one.
I would love to see the tournament rankings.
Yeah, because Sam ended up 1 in PA. He squeaked me out by playing his last couple.
That was mostly just because I went to the last couple. Yeah.
Just grinding, grinding events.
Yeah, and then it'd be nice to see where everybody landed. But yeah, I think you were what, low 20s, Sam, 20 something.
21 is what level I ended up, because that's how many level up cards I had, and I never bought or traded any extra, so 21, I guess. Yeah.
So I was probably 19 or maybe 20.
19 or 20, yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, some folks in Chicago were coming strong, because they were almost to 15 or 16 in 04. So you could tell they were getting it in.
Oh yeah, these gentlemen are a little too humble. So we didn't mention it at the beginning of this podcast, but we've got definitely some high caliber players from the Pennsylvania area on this call right now.
Appreciate that.
Yeah, thanks.
So I mean, with just the way you guys, like, I don't even technically officially know how to fully play the game yet, and I was just like, hey, I looked at the card XYZ. I don't care if it's good or not, but from my understanding, does this, and this work? So essentially, could I make a deck that does X, Y, and Z? And that turned into a 3-day conversation with you, Sid. So I'm like, yo, this guy is awesome. He's helping me build the janky shit. I love it.
Yeah, I love a good gimmick deck myself, too. I'm all about the gimmick decks. Love when a combo comes together.
I always refer to Tim as like the Bill Belichick of like card games, where he's able to take. Well, it's actually a compliment in the sense where he's able to take a set of rules that he's given. Like, here's what you're allowed to do, here's what you're not allowed to do, and he's able to actually find ways to take advantage of even what looks like the crappiest card and still somehow make it work. That he can make it work in a system. So that's why I said, like, it's more of a hat tip to him than like a diss on him. Like, he's not exploiting the rules. He's just literally saying, okay, here's the rules. Here's what you got to do because of this card and this card and this card. Here, I just played 4 cards in your face, and you're like, how the hell did you do that?
Magic.
Yeah.
Tim, you and I definitely cut from the same cloth in that regard.
Yeah, especially because this hack is built for 1 card per turn. So anytime you can generate card advantage, it's huge. So I mean,
that is definitely huge, being able to try to get yourself multiple card plays when you're only doing 1 in a turn. Yep.
Yeah, and I think the most cards. I mean, Resurrect, which is generally a terrible card. It's a 1 destiny. People hate it, but I mean, with the right setup, you could play 7 cards off 1 Resurrect, and then you're 7 cards ahead of the opponent.
So as far as so obviously, so the website was mostly used, for announcements for like upcoming sets and tournament announcements and band announcements. The few that there were. How exactly was like new sets coming out? Like how was that process? Because I know for at least like Magic and Pokemon and stuff, it's this big ritual. Like, you've got, I mean, obviously, I'm pretty sure with the dawn of the internet at the time, as it were, there probably wasn't any like spoilers per se. Correct me if I'm wrong there, of course, but and then there was always a pre-release event where like you'd go like the week before a set was technically like out, and you'd get to like do like a draft or a sealed event with these cards before they were technically publicly purchasable.
I don't think the Cypher ever did any of that. Like, I don't remember having any parties or getting together with a bunch of people and like, hey, I can't wait to bust these open. It's like, it's either like, hey, this is when it's coming out, look for it in your local comic book store, and then you just start kind of collecting. I don't remember. Tim, do you remember any big launch things we went to?
Well, I definitely know, like, if a set came out midweek or whenever it came out, usually the next tournament would be a starter deck tournament where you'd pick, if you wanted your buy-in, say $20 would get you a starter deck and a couple boosters, and they would do. Remember when they had the
sealed deck? You're right.
A sealed deck, yeah. So that was usually that was about the extent of the big to do. So we would always go to that first one because it's nice that you crack it open, you read the new cards together, figure it out. So they'd had starter deck tournaments, obviously, for the first 4 sets, since there were no starters for the 5th. But so usually the first couple would be starter deck tournaments with a couple boosters thrown in. Then they had the booster drafts, which were great. But yeah, nothing as far as pre-release that I know of. It's like it's available to the public. The first tournament would be based around it.
Okay.
But I don't think there was anything ahead of time. Yeah.
So sealed events, you would actually be given like a starter deck and a couple of packs to kind of like shoehorn things in and out as you sell fit.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. So for example, when the second set came out, it was Terrajima Ryoko and Sanjuro.
I've got a whole case of them right here.
Yeah. So you'd pick. I don't know if you got to pick or sometimes they were random, but I feel like you got to pick. And then they would give you a couple boosters, either the current set or maybe a mix of the current set and previous sets. And you'd have like 20 minutes to build your deck, and then you'd have get after with the tournament. Then in between rounds, you could usually swap out. You'd have some on the bench, if you will, or the board, whatever you called it. You could switch them in and out. And then the booster drafts were some of my favorites, which was, obviously where you pass the packs around, and then you have the slightly smaller deck size, a lot more faster paced.
Oh yeah, for the Magic community that's watching this, y'all know how much I love draft. I just suck. I suck at any kind of what we in the Magic community would call a limited format, where you're given the cards you have to play with. Because just thinking on the fly like that, I'm like, but this one's pretty, but this one's better for my deck. I want this one though.
Yeah.
You should have just been one of those people who just hawk the extra rares and rares when they drop. Like, take them.
Oh, that wouldn't even been me, dude. When Epidemic dropped, I'd have just been drafting Grunties for days. And then I'd have been pissed later on because I had no extra rares.
Yeah, so that was always funny. It was always the joke in the beginning was Phoenix Queen was unplayable, unplayable in the first set. So in a booster draft, the last card would sometimes be a Phoenix Queen. You'd hear giggles, you'd be like, there's a Phoenix Queen in that pack. Pass it around, be the last card to be one of them.
I think our buddy Wade walked away with like 2 or 3 that won.
Yeah.
She made a couple appearances and just passed it around.
Yeah. Turned out to be not so bad later in the game, but yeah, in the beginning it was brutal. You had to have the exact hand. 4 PCs in her. Good luck.
So to harken back to Epidemic in general here, since it seems to was it because it's extremely hard to get a hold of now. I mean, you can go on Hills right now and buy like literally practically pallets of every other set, and Epidemic came out like literally right smack dab in the middle of this 3-ish year lifespan that was Enemy. Was it just because Enemy had a lot of like the really popular and very tournament friendly, I guess you could say, like tournament power level cards in it, so just a lot of it was cracked? So not a lot of it's available now?
Epidemic was really neat because it had introduced a lot of new stuff. It had introduced level 2 PCs, which came with 2 strength or 3 strength depending on their class. It also introduced the Grunties. It introduced I think that one had the weapons, Tim, that you could jump from 1 to 3.
1 to 3. Yep.
Yeah, so that one was kind of big. So it was in the beginning, when you first were playing with just Contagion and Distortion, the first 2 sets, faster games happened a lot. You had very quick, let me score these real quick monsters, because PCs couldn't get big enough fast enough. So you would have games that were over so quickly. Thankfully, with Epidemic, they were able to spin that a little bit so that you could get your PCs big enough to contest the monsters, so they couldn't just score 4 quick points on you. They had to actually work for it a little bit when you were able to jump a PC strength up to like 3 or 4 within 2 or 3 moves. So it became a little bit different story, but I think a big part of why Epidemic, this is my personal opinion, I have no obviously scientific proof behind it. I think
hold up, Sis is about to piss off like half the enemy Discord right now. Go ahead.
I think personally, just me when we were going to like these tournaments and like our first stop at Gen Con and whatnot, Decipher had kind of shifted gears because I think they lost the Star Wars licensing, so they couldn't put out their Star Wars cards, and that was really big for them, the Star Wars TCG. And they had lost the license, so to capitalize on that, they were working on launching out their own Wars TCG, which kind of followed the similar format and kind of like stole the fun stuff without having Luke and Vader all over it, you know. So they tried to launch their own thing and have this big shebang-a-bang at Gen Con where people got T-shirts and were part of a team and all this. And Epidemic, when it was released, I think was like right at that moment when they were shifting gears and trying to focus probably a lot of their finances on this Wars TCG. They were hoping that was going to take them to the next level and keep the finances rolling in. This, like I said, that's my opinion, and I think like because of that, Epidemic suffered and they didn't make as much. Now, whether or not it's rare, I don't know, because you keep hearing reports about box numbers and people are sitting on cards somewhere, and you know, I don't know. Like,
oh man, we gotta do like a
were...
week-long argument with what's his face in the Discord. We're not gonna call him out here, but we gotta do a week-long argument about that of like box numbers and stuff and how that's all a myth and how people are like somebody just scooped up whatever was left from Hills and it's just sitting on it like it's a nest egg. And let me tell you, from a finance standpoint, good. Yeah, okay. Good. Unfortunately, those booster boxes will probably die with that individual.
Yeah, probably, because nobody's going to pay the prices that they're trying to get for them. Absolutely. But yeah, I think a lot of it was the Wars TCG. I think took a lot of their attention and their finances. And Epidemic, unfortunately, was just kind of in the middle of that. Now they rebounded a little bit with Isolation, but then by the time Breakout rolled out, you didn't have any shiny extra rares. There were no foils.
That pisses me off so much because I have one binder that's just extra rares and tournament foils, and I get to that last page. And I'm like, none of these fuckers are shiny. The whole rest of this binder is shiny, but these are still like the premium cards.
Yeah, there was no starters, there was no foils, there was nothing. And I mean, they tried to kind of say like, here, we'll counterbalance it. You'll find more extra rares, but you know, it's not really the same thing.
So Epidemic was even in short supply, like.
In its heyday, we could find it just fine. Okay. Yeah, we found it just fine when we were in the middle of it. Yeah.
Yeah, and even after, I think, like I said, I had sold 15 packs on the Discord maybe a year ago, maybe not even, because I had a whole booster box down here, which I still have like half of. But at the end, even Hills had it cheap. I mean, it was in the, you could buy one of each for, like I said, a little over $20. So it was, $4 to $5 a case, or a booster box rather. But then all of a sudden it seemed like that ran out faster than the rest did. So it wasn't that Hills didn't have any, it's just that they seemed to have less of it, and when they sold it out, it went with them. So, but I mean, they all came out so soon. I was trying to find the release date to this, and within a year and a half they put out 5 sets. And I'm not sure how Magic works, but that seems like a pretty aggressive timeline for releasing 130 to 100 cards every couple months. It seems Did they move too fast? Should they have spaced it out and let the people absorb what they had before they kicked out the 5th set within a year and a half?
Yeah, because whatchamacallit, they have I'll put it up on the screen in the video, but they have like a tournament card that is pretty readily available that has like all the release dates. And I like, when I first saw that, I was like, okay, one, they've already got all this shit plotted of like Contagion, Isolate, like all of these sets are already planned with release dates on this one single card that was given out at an event. So like, they already had this stuff in the books, printed, boxed up, ready to ship. Well, before the new set was even in a tournament.
Yeah, I love that card. It's actually Balmung on it. It's a 2004 tournament schedule card, which I just pulled up here. But I mean, I think the reason I like it, Sam, it's funny, we looked at it, we were at that, August 19th to the 22nd, Indianapolis, Indiana, 2004. It's fun. That's on that card. We were there. That's cool. But it even says like they had planned out from February. So it was Distortion was February, Epidemic was June, Isolation was October, Breakout was probably December, early the next year. I mean, they were cranking. So
yeah, because I mean, for Magic in general, we'll get a new set on for Magic roughly about every 4 to 6 months. So it's like quarterly. Now, it to kind of like double back a little bit here when it comes to, because like with Magic we have different formats for tournament play, where you have standard, where it's like it's the most recent two blocks or 6 or so sets roughly, and then as the new stuff got printed, the oldest sets got rotated out, so they weren't legal in that format anymore, and you'd have to move into what we now call historic or pioneer or modern or vintage, where you're playing with just no holes barred, everything's on the table, but there's a restricted list where they restrict the number of copies you can have. With Enemy, was there like a standard format where it was just like the most recent 2 or 3 sets, or was it just for the entirety that it was alive, the game was alive, it was just everything's on the table?
Aside from booster draft or aside from booster draft or starter tournaments, it was mostly just anything goes. Yeah, there was no point where they said you can no longer play Contagion, which almost in because it didn't probably get going too much. And as Sam alluded to, the earlier sets, they didn't become obsolete, but some of the earlier weapons and things were replaced by better versions in older sets. There's none of the overpowered stuff from the first set that's going to really, make. There's nothing in the first set that's going to make it too powerful to play when the fourth set came out, for example.
Gotcha. Okay.
Sometimes just for fun, Sam and I and some of our friends would have we'd make rules on ourselves just to make it more fair for folks that didn't have as many cards. Like, only your deck can only have so many rares, or can only have so many of this or that, or just to kind of mix it up. But nothing.
That's the other thing I like.
You couldn't play things.
Yeah, that's the other thing I liked about you guys in general. Like when I started getting chummy in the enemy Discord, is like a couple people that just started collecting would come in and like, oh man, like I want to play with my friends, but like I gave them a starter deck, but they want to try other cards, but I don't have a bajillion epidemic rares and extra rares lying around to like give them to make decks. And you were like, oh, just do like commons and uncommons only, and maybe a couple of rares or like 1 or 2 rares. And
yeah,
here's some sample deck lists. I'm like, what the fuck? These guys are just like a bank vault of information on this game.
Well, I think that's a testament to the game and how well it's balanced. That you can actually just make a deck mostly from like a starter and a couple packs. Because honestly, if you look at like even Tim's lists or my lists, when it comes to our decks that we consider maybe powerful or that we consider ones that are pretty strong, like it'll have only 2 or 3 extra rares, or like a couple rares. Like it's not bogged down with these elite cards that nobody can acquire. They're like, the game itself is like, its basis is around its commons and its uncommons, and that's what a majority of it is. Like there's PCs that are common that are literally some of my favorites. Like Clemma, who came out in like what, the 4th or 5th set for long arms. She's beast. Like she gives you +2 if you win a fight to any other PC you got. Like that's like brutal. And she's a common. So like you can make valid decks from just getting a box of cards, which is awesome. And it's a really good testament to the actual balance of the game, which I think is very hard to do, especially if you have a game that's going on as long as some is like Magic and Pokemon.
Oh yeah, for sure. And I mean, not like even like to tip the hat further in Enemy's direction here. I mean that's also a testament, because like with how fast they crank these sets out, to still have like commons and uncommons that late into a game's development that are still like, when they come out, like relevant and powerful, without really kind of like making some of the older cards obsolete. Because I even some of the later tournament deck lists that we were somehow able to scrape off the bowels of the internet, a lot of like, I was still seeing like Contagion and Isolation cards in tournament winning deck lists. So I was It's crazy to think that they were able to keep a game, like keep enough cards from all these sets when they're cranking so many out, like relevant and powerful, without having this skyrocketing power creep.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, some of the first ones, I mean, Mimiru will probably be the first one, not even the second one. Mimiru 1.0, the regular one's probably still one of the top PCs, probably top 5, just because her reward is so brutal. Yeah. Yeah,
I have her number 2 at my top 15 overall. So nice. She's right there. She's still nice, even from Contagion all the way out.
Yep. Yeah, and she was a good splash card. You put her in any deck, even if it's not a heavy blade, you could drop her in just because her ability was so good. Yep. And even my favorite PC also, which we'll get to, I think, in one of your questions, is a common. Yeah. So, spoiler alert.
So, actually, we might as well just dip right into that now. So I'm gonna put images on the screen in just a moment as these gentlemen rattle these off. But out of my own morbid curiosity, I would like to know both of your top 3 favorite cards. Not even like best cards. Your top 3 favorite cards.
Do you want to go, Sam? Do you have yours ready? Or you want me to go?
Yeah, actually, I prepped mine ahead of time, so I'm ready.
Okay. You can go first. That's fine. I have mine.
And these guys came more prepared than me for this interview.
Well, I thought about it for a second, and you said top 3, and I'm like, well, I could easily just name off like PCs or, something, because PCs are kind of a big point of the game, even though it's about attacking and scoring monsters. Monsters, actually, in my opinion, there's so many and there's so much out there, and some of them, like a ton of them, work so well together. There's so much synergy. They work so well together. It was very difficult to come up with like a monster that I thought was like, because like Sled Dog King, he's as great as Viltramaster, like some of these like Haymaker guys, like they're strong, but like you can't pick one of them. So I tried to come up with like a little bit of a variety. So I came up with like a PC that I thought was one of my favorites, an event
Real quick,
card,
he
and I
threw,
did
he
come
threw
up.
Sled Dog King in there because that's the card that I approached him with as like the jank.
That's the one I told you about, yeah, man. So my first is Natsume 2.0. She's my favorite PC, and even her 1.0 is, and she's from the original Contagion one and carries, heft deep into the game. That ability to add to the destiny to win offensive or defensive fights is amazing. Whether it's 1.1 or 1.0
or even lost
or
the signal.
Yeah, for loss of signal, absolutely. Yeah, my Pyros killer. But just to wound her, to add that to your destiny, to win big fights or important fights, or even start a chain reaction with monster rewards because you need to win that first one. She's such a huge PC card, and unfortunately she's in that epidemic group, but definitely I would definitely put an argument up to pay a price for it if you're going to be a player of the game. A collector, then you got to look a little bit different. But if you're literally going to play, I still play the game to this day with my kids.
I was going to say, you went and grabbed 3 sets, not just as a flex, but you actually have kids that you introduced to the game, which I think is awesome.
Yeah. My oldest, he's 7. He plays with me. He's got a collection of his own started now. I was able to score him some epidemic starters for Christmas. He lit up like a Christmas tree when he kicked open that gift.
Best
dad
ever.
He knows how rare they are. Yeah. But so Natsume 2.0, definitely PCs. Events. One of my absolute favorite event cards is Girl in White. Like Tim and I have mentioned, multiple card plays is very key for this. Girl in White gives you 2 options with her card. You can either play it from your hand and play an item from your discard pile, or she can come up as Destiny. You can remove her from the game and play up to 2 in the same PC. So she has multiple abilities. So I think that's kind of like nice, and it's very opportunistic. And I've actually had her come up tons of times for Destiny when you wouldn't think you would, even if you had like 3 or 4 in there. But,
yeah, without even like knowing how to play the game, when I first saw that card, because one for me, that initial scene in Infection, I'll probably cut to a clip of this in the video. The initial scene when you first meet the character on the card, when I was a kid, I had goosebumps. I was shaking. I was like, this is the most amazing game of all time. Nothing will ever compare to this experience I'm having right now as a small child. So seeing that image again on a card was just like chef's kiss for me. And I'm also absolutely obsessed with, especially in Magic, with what we would call modal cards that have multiple ways that they can be played in a game. I was like, I think I have like, I swear to God, I think I have like 30 copies of that card now.
Yeah, she's the only one that I can think of, Tim, unless you can think of another card that has multiple ways you can play the card. I don't think.
Yeah, I'm not. None that come to mind.
She's the only one you can play as a regular event, and also when you draw it for Destiny.
Yeah, another good thing they did with this one, if you do that draw for Destiny, you can remove it from the game to play it up to 2 items. Otherwise, you could just stack it with Mistral and things. So they even thought that out to where you can't abuse it. Now, if it is in your discard pile, you can stack it with Mistral, which is amazing, and then you have guaranteed 3 Destiny if it'll get the job done, and then you get to play a couple items, which is nice.
Yeah. But and then my monster, that one took a little bit of thinking, because like I was trying to think of like a monster. I was like, they're all pretty good, and then you don't want to pick just like some kind of wishy-washy, like, oh, just because he has like 14 strength, I'm going to pick Corbinic. But actually, the phase cards are kind of brutal, even to play. However, my favorite one, and probably the one that's probably the most versatile, especially once they came out with strength buffed PCs and stuff like that and items, is Gore. And he's from the Epidemic set as well, unfortunately, but he's just so good. Like, not only is he worth like, what is it, 4 points, I think?
Yes. That I
if you
actually
lose
know.
a fight to yeah,
Yeah.
if you lose a fight to them, you lose the game. So like you can come at them with no points, and if they choose to fight it, you lose it. So they've got to basically let them go by. But if you set yourself up nice and get 3 easy points, then they have no choice. But he's just so nice because 16 strength really is not really that difficult to get to, especially once they added in the bonus weapons and the PC strength. And
I have a subtle guilty
run 'em in
pleasure
my-
grin right now because for some reason, says I just knew off the top of my head you were gonna pick Gore.
Well, I run him. I run him in my Knights deck, which is kind of neat because if you can get it to where you get like the 4 Knights out, you can literally sack 3 of them like you have to play Gore, but you don't leave yourself completely vulnerable. You can still have one of the other Knights still there, so that's kind of neat. So I run him in my Knights, but those are my 3.
Yeah, and Gore just I've noticed was always just kind of like a lot of decks I saw for like the tournament list and stuff just kind of like threw him in there. It's just
absolutely,
like, yeah.
because it's completely situational. He's not like the other ones that are dependent on elements or having a weapon or armor on or anything like that. He's literally, if your PCs are strong enough, go ahead and play me. So yeah, it's kind of nice.
Yeah, and
Yeah, it's a nice flexible play at the end of any deck. Yeah, you splash them in. You know, if your regular strategy doesn't get it done, you're down a couple points. If you have 3, even if you're up against 6, or your death is inevitable, you can throw it out there, see what happens. I mean,
Yeah.
if you're gonna,
yeah, his
it's a nice last ditch effort.
his effect is very similar to a card by the name. Oh, my chim fell. Very similar to a card in Magic called Phage the Untouchable, that has a similar effect where, but if she smacks the opponent in the face, that opponent loses the game. But there's a drawback to her where you have to meet very specific conditions to play her, and if you try to bypass them, she also has a line of text that says you lose the game if you try to cheat this card into play. So it's kind of like an inverse Gore in a way, where your opponent is basically just trying to block this thing as much as possible instead of letting it through, which I thought was an interesting little take on it.
Cool. Good picks there, Sam. So I was thinking the same thing. I didn't want to go, you could go a bunch of PCs if you want. There's a couple events that I really like, find myself going towards. But my
Mirror
favorite...
Memories. I know what your favorite.
Mirror Memories, yeah. Let Us Walk Together is pretty good. But so Fear, as far as my favorite PC, I got to go Anri 2.0. She's my girl. Love some Anri. Like I said, I'm all about card advantage. And every time you play a PC, you can play a hidden card with her. So, I mean, you can play multiple PCs in a turn and get up to 4, 6, 7 card plays, depending if you play your cards right.
Damn.
As we know, I mean, if Mailer...
I'm sorry,
Mailer
didn't you
lets
say this game was about playing 1 card a turn?
It was, which is why...
I told you he
better.
exploits the rules.
So, I mean, if you play, especially you get Newbie in play, so with Newbie and her, every PC you play, you can play 2 hidden cards. So you can see how it gets out of control. Items like Diabolic Wand say, when you play this, you can play a PC. So you play Diabolic, PC, hidden, you have BT in play, you draw, all kind of things are going on. But yeah, Anri, she's my fave.
I know there
only
really weren't
downside-
any, but Judge, I think Tim's on his shenanigans again.
Yeah, the only tricky part you have to know with her, pro tip, if you have to log out each of your PCs to play her. So if you have Sukasa in play, you can't play her because he cannot log out. So that's something that people might overlook. But once she's in play, you can just replace her with a copy of herself or log out your other folks. So Anri, she's my fave. And then as far as I wanted to go with something different too, so I went with a field, believe it or not.
Nice.
So I went with the Tested Quicksilver Valkyrie. So I'll read
Is
that.
that that's the wood one, right?
It is, yes. You might not have that.
Brutal.
Might not have that memorized, but so I'll just read it. I know you'll put it up on the screen, but when a monster is played to a portal, its owner sacrifices a card or plays a PC. So this is one of the few fields that's offense and defense. So on defense, if you're not prepared to play a PC, and many decks are not built to have weak PCs in play, you're going to have to hide a card you want to sack the next turn just to put somebody in the portal, or you have to, just play a PC, which you might not want to put down because they're not ready to be on defense. Now, on the offensive side, sticking with my extra card play theory, if I play a monster to the portal, I can then play a PC and then play a hidden card with Anri. So you get 3 card plays in one just for putting a card in the portal. So, I mean, you can really stack it up and get going with that as well. So, actually, my favorite deck, which we're going to go off on a tangent here, is the Wave Master Golem deck. So multiple card plays and golems, which mainly rely on sacking cards. So if I can play 3 or 4 cards a turn and then make you sack 2 or 3 cards that you worked really hard to get, it can be pretty devastating on the other side.
Oh yeah, if I spent 3 turns building up my board and you're just like, and they're gone.
Yeah. So which actually, funny enough, leads into my third one. I did pick a monster, mainly because I had some nostalgia with it. It was the closer in the beginning, and Sam's gonna know what it is. The original closer.
Yeah, Moo Guardian.
Moo Guardian was a monster in the beginning. Yeah, he's a strength 7, sack 3 cards. Your opponent sacks 2 when they lose, which they will.
Wasn't that a promo card?
It was. And
It was from the first, from when they launched.
And they're everywhere. In the beginning, he was unstoppable. I mean, in the beginning, you hide 3 cards or 2 cards, or you have 6 points. Just sack your whole PC board and drop a 7. Just walk away because nobody's going to stop at the beginning. But towards the end,
PCs could only get to like what 6 or 7 if they were lucky. I think in the beginning, so they weren't even equal strength to Moo Guardian. So
yeah,
and so he really was a haymaker back in his day.
Yeah. Benki could be the biggest. But so that one as well, because I said in my favorite deck, you put 3 or 4 cards down in turn. And there's other ones. I mean, there's like Nega Guardian Spin Figure, which is sack 5, which is real crazy, and it's a 9 strength, which you can do, and they're in the gold deck. But I mean, you can spend 1 turn and then make your opponent sack 2 cards, and you probably get a point, and they're wounded. Things get crazy. So I would say Anri, Tested Quicksilver Valkyrie, and the Moo Guardian, my faves.
I got really mad at Tested Quicksilver Valkyrie while I was working on my collection because I forget what rare I was looking for, but it was another field card. So I was literally just ripping through. I would swear to God, I think I ordered like a dozen boxes at a time from Hills, and I was just ripping through them looking for this one fucking field card. I'm pissed that I can't remember the name of it right now.
Let me see. Is Turbulent Distrusting Ice Wall?
Yes.
Or okay, yeah, the water one.
So I just like laser focused on the card type line of the card, just like thumbing through cards at like a mile a fucking second. I literally think I got like 8 hand cramps cracking packs that night. We did it actually live on Twitch, and people were like, "Does Pip even care about what cards he's cracking?" And I was like, I need one. I need one to finish the set.
The 4th card in. That's the one we worry about. The 4th one.
And I just kept seeing field card, and kept being I swear to God, one box had like 3 of them in it, and I was about ready to flip my desk. I was so over it.
Go make yourself a deck. You can do it.
I got literally, this is like all of my leftover rare cards in this box that like I already had play sets for my binder of like, these are never leaving this binder again until I'm dead collection. So I'm gonna have to dig them out of here and put a deck together. Still only got 1 extra sled donkey. Pissed me off. I'm gonna have to order more booster boxes. So we're kind of coming up to our final segment, and it's kind of a bittersweet one, but definitely one that I think is important for the viewers at home for us to kind of discuss here. Where do you think Enemy went wrong? Like what caused the downfall of Enemy at large, would you say?
I think Decipher shifted focus off it, as Sam kind of alluded to. I think they put their eggs in other baskets that didn't even do as well as this. I mean, they won an award in 04. I mean, what, the Origins Court Card Game of the Year or something?
Oh shit, I didn't even mention that. Yeah.
It had some legs in the beginning, and I feel like it had some good credibility. I think it's got interesting mechanics. I think it's simple enough to play an easy game, but it's deep enough to play a really strategic game if you want. I think there's multiple ways to win, which is great. I mean, you can deck out on purpose if you have enough points. That's awesome. There's lots of different mechanics. I just don't know if they kind of went cheap on Breakout, and they knew the end was in sight, or what. Or maybe they got ahead of themselves and started cranking out too fast. Because, I mean, by the time you figured out what one set was, another one was ready to drop on you. I almost wish I had more time to kind of really digest the cards. I feel like, Contagion got a lot of our attention because it was the first one, and then Distortion, and then while you're halfway through Distortion, Epidemic's out, and then people may have skipped sets to get to the new ones because you don't really have time to go back and get all the older sets if you're just getting into it.
Yeah, that could be kind of nauseating to just have that much content vomited at you.
Yeah, it almost feels like not a money grab, but it's like, man, I didn't complete this one yet. Now you want me to get another one? It's like, I'd rather there be more time to digest and really enjoy the cards, and more of them might have got equal playing time if you weren't, by the time you figure out what something good is, a new set's dropping out and people.
Yeah, so that definitely was a point of contention with the player base, as a lot of people were frustrated with how fast sets were coming out.
In the time, I don't think anybody complained about it really, but yeah, you're right. Like you have no time to look at cards. So like basically you had what you were playing with in the beginning, and then all you basically looked for when the next set came out was something to try to make those decks better. So like Tim said, like there's a lot of cards that may have gotten play, but you just never spent time on it because they were coming out so quick. All you were trying to do was just better your current hand.
And there were some sets that you like mimics. They're cool, but they never got the support they needed, and they never, you never really take off. They were never going to be competitive or viable because so many other sets were just. Some sets got so many monsters, and some were limited to like 5 or 6.
I'm okay with mimics not being a thing. After my many playthroughs of Dark Souls 3, the mimics can just die in a fire. I'm okay with that.
They had, but I think, and I can't speak for Sam, but I think I would have rather had 5 or 6 years of a set every 8 months, more so than 2.5 really good years. I'd rather have it stretched out and maybe got more time to introduce people to the game, because I think the people that were all about it they were all in, but there wasn't enough time to really pull in that peripheral audience that may have been interested, because by the time it really got going, it was fading out. So I wish it would have been a little bit more methodical and maybe just stretched it out a little bit. It might have stretched the longevity of it, maybe given it more time to catch more people, as opposed to being such a niche thing. It could have been more widespread and really caught on for a longer period of time.
Yeah, because like both to the benefit and detriment of the card game, the artwork itself, like it wasn't like Magic where art is commissioned and licensed and produced specifically for the card game. As you guys watching this video will see on some of the cards I'm going to put up on the screen, legitimately they just used sprites from the character models from the video games and scenes from the animes.
And that could have possibly been maybe because they didn't have, because the game itself didn't have like worldwide exposure. It was mostly just continental US. Like that's where most of it was at. So like I'm thinking like maybe they didn't have the same kind of rights from like Bandai and stuff like that, where they couldn't come in with their own customization stuff like that because of trademarks and whatever that
I didn't even think of that. Was Enemy actually even released in like Japan or anywhere else, or was it strictly just continental US?
It's just US.
Yeah, I've never seen it. Yeah, the games obviously. I think the games were, but and the anime. But yeah, as far as the card game, I don't know if it was.
Oh, that's so bizarre. That is like for me, like because like pretty much every other card game has like come from like even the Monster Hunter card game, like that came from Japan, it never came over here, but every other card game started in Japan practically.
Yeah, no, this was a U.S. company, Decipher, out of Virginia, and they got the license and then manufactured. But like I said, they probably had limits on what they could use and what they couldn't use as far as like images and whatnot. So that's why they just see
that would make
video
sense.
Game and anime.
But like at the same time though, I think that was like, because like I was saying about the Girl in White card, like having these like iconic moments for people that are like diehard fans of the franchise, like the three of us for some reason. Like just being able to crack a pack and go, holy shit, I remember this. Like that, I think like that had some very powerful effects, even subconsciously for players of Enemy at the time, and for like collectors like myself that never got a chance to actually like play it in person. But just opening a pack and just seeing these moments from like, I mean, at the time it was our childhood and early adult years, but like seeing these scenes on a card, it just seems like a cool thing for me. But
I think it really, maybe it focused too much on the hardcore person that already knew about the series. Maybe you try to stretch it out and expand your wings beyond those folks that have already played the game.
Yeah.
I mean, it's great for folks like us, but did it do enough to gather the folks that might have been on the fringe that were there buying Magic, and that's in the shelf next door? Did it do enough to kind of reach out to that person?
Yeah, so definitely, I would say almost too much fan service, because I feel like there was other things they could do mechanically and advertising-wise to draw in new players where they wouldn't have had to affect or change the card game. Like Sis said, with like some of the, especially like legal limitations they may have had with the card game. Do we think that Decipher kind of like just blew their load entirely and just like tried to cash grab, and by pumping all these sets out as quickly as humanly possible, and then say, hey, if we make enough money on this and this takes off and we don't have anything else lined up, we'll keep producing cards somehow? Because even some of the cards literally just kind of recycled.
It's possible.
I mean, that's what it seems like for me at the very least.
Towards the end there in the fifth set, they were just bringing Yeah, they were bringing out like like Doberman pack or something like that, where it was just Doberman, but they just put 2 in there and bumped up the strength and the destiny or something like that. So that they were running out of monster content from the game for sure. But yeah, I think like I said, when they were shifting gears and trying to cash in on wars, and then of course then they had that impending embezzlement thing that happened to their company. I don't know.
Oh shit, yeah, I didn't even think of that.
Yeah, like that was towards like I think Enemy was probably done running when that happened, but it didn't mean that they didn't know it was coming. You know, they probably knew that this was going to come and they were going to get outed and they were going to have this huge, you know, corporate collapse. So yeah, for a company, and they that could have hurt it. Maybe there might have been more. I don't know, but maybe they ended up rushing and then cutting it short because they're like, you know what, we can't have all this all over the place, so we got to tie some of these loose ends up.
Yeah, I forgot they had the Lord of the Rings card game too. That one they had, that was a big one they had licensed, and that went to 07 it looks like. So that went a couple years beyond.
Yeah, that was actually another card game I played. That died in 07. God, I wish I still had some of my cards from that.
Yep.
So not enough eggs, too many baskets. Definitely. I mean, it's unfortunate, but at the same time, DotHack's just such a weird, like, niche fan base, and I love it to death in some ways, because even if like 5 people watch this video and 3 of those people are you or the 3 of us here, I'm okay with it. But
yeah, it's just fun to talk about. You know, it's good to have somebody else that shares a passion. You know, and I think that's what we love about the Discord too. There's folks that they might have barely been born when we were out there doing this, and they're like, "Oh, tell me about this, tell me about that." And it kind of, you know, makes you think back to the fun times we did have, and you know, it's good to see another generation showing interest in something that we got to experience in the moment.
Yeah, and I mean, I definitely thank the both of you for taking this time out of your busy day-to-day schedules with everything going on and whatnot, to share this with me. You know, it was a part of a franchise that I was thoroughly invested in, but just didn't have the exposure to it to really enjoy it. And to be honest with you, it made me mad for a long time. Reading in the Discord, you guys chumming it up about tournaments and stuff, and I'm like, damn, I could have had that same experience had I just fucking known about it.
Yeah. It wasn't like a huge publicized TCG, and like I said, it didn't have like the same type of turnout like, you know, you were talking about like your different cliques and groups and organizations at these things, and like, you know, it was pretty much just, I think, mostly casual people who were just looking, that were probably fans of the series, and were just looking for something fun to do. So
yeah, it's definitely a good little community.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, especially with the enemy Discord itself. I mean, of course, any group's got its bad eggs, as we mentioned earlier. But I mean, we've all gotten pretty chummy, and in some respects, I mean, granted, I've probably just bought cards from a lot of people, and that's why they like me. But I mean, we've made some genuine friends through the DotHack franchise in and of itself, and like more specifically, the enemy channel is definitely one of the more active ones, because ever since I popped back in and actually started talking to you guys, and like every once in a while I'll come back to it, and there's like 50 messages in there I didn't read, and I'm like, I turned away from this Discord for 2 seconds, and then everybody decides to wake up and check their phone.
Yeah, I always try to respond to people as often as I can whenever they post on there. And usually if something relevant comes up that I know Tim would have some input on, I usually try to tag him so he can give his 2 cents in on it too. But yeah, so I love being able to talk about it any time of day. Like I said, I still play it to this day, you know, with my kids and anybody who wants to sit down and play a game. I just love it. It's just been such a huge part of my life, just collecting it and playing it over the years, and
then being able to pass that on to your kids. I mean, that's just awesome.
Don't tell them. But the game plan is I have 3 sons. First one's hooked. The second one is about it or whatever. But and I'm hoping to get all 3 of them into it. And since I have 4 complete sets of every card, I'm hoping that I'll be able to hand a complete set to each of them if they still have the same appreciation for it when they get to be an adult themselves. So I'll be able to give them each a copy, and I'll still have one for myself. So that's the game plan.
So how old is your oldest one?
7.
Okay. So I gotta mark my calendar 11 years from now because there might be at least one complete set of Epidemic on eBay.
yeah, he chucks it out there. Pay for college or something.
All joking aside, genuinely, I may not be as vocally appreciative as I might want to be, but genuinely, this means a lot to me. I greatly appreciate the both of you taking your time. We're gonna probably be getting together for one more installment, like one more recording session. We definitely want to do a sit down, like kind of how to play, for the people that watch this video and do show some genuine interest in it. So because there's not really a whole lot of content out there about it, and I definitely aim to continue working with the .hack Discord to just get the information out there for generations like myself that maybe dabbled in it, dipped their toes in it, but never really had the chance to dive in head first.
Yeah,
That's cool.
Yeah, the more resources the better. Because I mean, you try to do a search and it's hard to find anything. So if there's a go-to, a source for folks to find out information, as well as if there's a video, I think that'd be nice just to.
Yeah, even if it's just something we have in our back pocket for the enemy channel itself. Like, we get people that come in all the time, like, hey, I'm collecting the shit out of these cards, but I don't know how to play it. So. Yep. I think either on this upcoming Friday or later on in this upcoming month, we're gonna get together with Modus and actually get like a sit down game where we'll have a commentator explaining like how to play and stuff. So I think that'll be fun. And then I kind of want to get not necessarily like super sweaty try hard, but like even just getting like 4 people together and just doing like a round robin event just so we can see some decks in action, I think would be fun. So we'll definitely get together at, sometime later on about this and try to set something like that up.
Yeah,
cool.
I'd love to do it if we could somehow make it work. Whether I end up having to set the phone up on the table or whatever.
Yeah, we can mix. I mean, there's a plugin for. Also for those of you watching at home, there is a mod on the Steam Workshop for the enemy card game. So please don't think that you got to go out and try to hunt down all these rare cards just to play the game. Try it out with your friends. The mod has the rule books, has all the starter decks pre-built for you right on the table when you launch into Tabletop Simulator. If you don't have Tabletop Simulator, I'm going to link it in my Humble Bundle down below so you can, spend a little bit of money. There's usually on sale at 90% of the time, and you will get to help raise money for Children's Hospital of Philadelphia with your purchase of that game through that link in the description. So please, by all means, check that out.
Tim has his version of the game that he had made too, as well, right?
I'm not sure if it's even active anymore. That Lackey CCG. I had built some assets for that. It was awesome. Even had like the card packs with correct rarity drops. Even had random packs that contained cards from all 5 sets. You could do booster drafts through that. It was awesome. But again, I'm not sure if Lackey CCG is even a thing. I think some folks have used the Dropbox on the Discord that I made to use some of the card images and assets and things for the.
I know I did.
I'm not sure. Yeah. Okay. Perfect. There you go. Glad it's still being used. That was, man, it must have been maybe 8 years ago by now. Maybe
that's
10
what I used to make my my collection spreadsheet,
nice.
The one where you mouse over all the cards and it pops up and it takes you. If you click on it, it takes you right to the wiki page. All the card images that load there are straight from that Dropbox.
Good.
Yeah, so that was definitely helpful because I kept clicking on a card and I'm like, shit, I don't remember what this card looks like, but I know I have a bunch of them. I gotta find it and put it in the spreadsheet. So just being able to link all that stuff up was definitely very, very helpful. But yeah, if Lackey CCG is available, still to this day, I will link that in the description as well. I don't necessarily feel bad about quote unquote bootleg in the game since, well, the cards are extremely hard to get. I would definitely thoroughly prefer if people are just kind of dipping their toes into it to maybe try it out before they try to scoop up a lot of these cards. Both from a selfish standpoint of I'd prefer these cards to be available to people that might not, might buy a starter deck or two, say, oh, fuck this shit, and then throw them out. Because the whole purpose of this little mini series we're working on right now is just preservation of something that a lot of us here are passionate about. And I definitely think that'd be a great. I mean, I don't plan on almost really ever using anything outside of my starter decks in a physical format. I plan to use Tabletop Simulator till the day I die, if I can, to just keep these cards in mint condition, because one of these days I'll probably pitch, 3 copies of every card and, get them out there just so somebody else can have that, enjoyment of the game and just keep my starter decks to play with people on a tabletop.
Good way to look at it.
But, I mean, by all means, if you have any questions at all, I will definitely get get all of you viewers at home, in touch with the .hack Network Discord, so that you can ask all the questions you want about Enemy or anything else in the .hack franchise. Again, Sam, Tim, thank you so much for your time today. I greatly, greatly appreciate this. And if there's any closing statements you'd like to make, here's the floor.
I would just say, jump on the Discord if you want to. You can find me on there. I'm .hackerv1, and just fun fact, it's the reason I created an email was to register for .hack tournaments. So my email is directly the only reason I got that was to jump in those tournaments like Sam talked about. So yeah, .hackerv1 on the Discord, and just thanks for giving us the forum to speak about the good old days.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. I really appreciate it. And like I said, I love talking shop any day of the week. So
cool.
Alrighty then. Well, again, greatly, greatly appreciated. This has definitely been a nice welcome breath of fresh air in a rather shite time for you know what and why. But anyways, I hope that both of you have an amazing rest of your day, and we'll be in touch.
Sounds good. Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right. Ciao.